There's this crown of thorns. When you go into the Church of St. Charles, you see a beautiful image of Charles venerating the shroud. And you see also all kinds of other devotional objects attached to that. Paintings, images, statues, crucifixes. What's the difference between Cardinal Borromeo's disposition towards the shroud and that of Pope Benedict XVI and us today? Well, the first one had no doubts or worries. He knew it was what it was. It was clear for them. They didn't have scientific instruments. They didn't have carbon-14 testing materials. They thought it was really the burial cloth of Jesus. And Pope Benedict and many of us are open to the fact that it might be, probably is, the burial cloth of Jesus. But our faith doesn't depend upon that. But our faith can be helped by it. Pope Benedict, when he went to Turin last Sunday, if you read the talks he gave, they're beautiful, worth reading, especially for companions, your homework for the week. He didn't say very much about the shroud in the first talk. He spoke about the Paschal Mystery, which we're celebrating all during this Easter season. He spoke how Christ gave himself out of love for us. Isn't that what the companions preach? Isn't that the message of the companions of the cross? Isn't that the message of our faith? And when he spoke to the young people, he mentioned that he was there to venerate the Shroud of Turin, but he didn't tell them that at all. He talked about openness to God and God's will and plan for their lives. Some perhaps to the priesthood, some to religious life, some to marriage, some to service of God's people, but all of them called to follow Jesus in their own unique way. And daring to challenge the young people to be bold, to give their whole life to Christ, not to turn back. And then in the afternoon, when he went to the church to be there with all the religious women of Italy, in northern Italy, Piedmont, he went first to the Blessed Sacrament Chapel to adore Christ, who is there in our tabernacle too. Why? Because we know that this is Jesus there. And we know that if the shroud, whatever status it has, is not Jesus. It's something that may be associated with him or reminds us of him or reminds us of human suffering. But it's not Jesus. The Blessed Sacrament is priority. And then he went on and spoke about the importance of meditating upon the Passion. The Pope focused on the 40 hours that Jesus was in the tomb, a time of utter darkness for the whole world. A darkness that many people today experience. Many people are in the darkness. And that in that darkness came the light of the face of the risen Christ to set the captives free, those souls that were held in bondage for all eternity. Now were set to be released to enter into the kingdom of God with Jesus. The darkness of humanity, God had entered. And now the ray of light of the resurrection of Jesus, the most stupendous moment in history, had also come here. And that's what we should focus on. The shroud is just the prelude to the good news of the resurrection of Jesus, who is here with us. See how the Pope puts things in their proper perspective? But I went and did the percorso, the wandering around. They missed me and they didn't give me the VIP treatment, and we didn't get in the short way. We went the long way, and it was better. And that's why God wanted us to take the long way, because we were there with the people, and we heard them, and we saw them, we listened to them, eating their sandwiches and laughing and eating gelato and talking and having a good time and going through and seeing images of the divine face of Jesus, of his passion, of his flagellation, of the acts and signs of his love for us. And then we got up to this room, kind of a modern room, and the lights dimmed, and we saw a high-resolution DVD that helped us to understand the burial cloth of Jesus, or at least what's on the Shroud of Turin. We saw where their face is, and they did a negative so we could see that what a face looks like. And then we saw the place of the wounds in the hand and on the back and the crown of thorns and all those other images. And then they asked us to be silent. And everybody was, remarkably. Everyone was silent. This was a chance to enter into the mystery of human suffering. And the title of the exhibition is Passio Christi, Passio Hominis. The suffering of Christ is the suffering of humanity. And even if this is not Jesus' burial shroud, it's the burial shroud of someone who suffered a lot. And what happens when you look at the sufferings of someone like that? Your heart is moved. You feel compassion. You feel yourself going out of yourself in sorrow and in love and in perhaps a willingness to help. And it's that vision that helps us when we see a person in need to say, I see Christ in that person I encounter. Whether the person is in need of a spiritual uplift, a word of encouragement, a word of support, or need of food or clothing or shelter, or a shoulder to cry on, or a hand to hold. That's really what the suffering of humanity is all about. We are moved to go beyond that. And so every sharing of someone's life and struggles and hopes and joys is the experience that we find ourselves in when we go to visit the Shroud of Turin. And it's something that our brothers here who became companions of the cross experienced when they shared with each other the joys and sorrows of preparing for the priesthood here in the Archdiocese of Ottawa. They felt maybe a bit adrift. They felt unsupported. They felt they needed a word of encouragement. And they found that in each other and in the Spirit moving in them and in Father Baha. And when they came to define their charism, their vision of what they wanted to be in the church, they saw themselves as charismatic, guided by the Spirit, as Eucharistic, centered not only on the cross of Christ, but on the great gift of himself that took place in those hours that led between the Last Supper and the Emmaus episode. They find their hearts warmed as Christ breaks open the Scriptures to them and teaches them how it touches their lives and gives meaning to them, so that they in turn can give meaning to the lives of the faithful who come to them. It's Marian. Mary was there at the side of the cross. It's also hierarchical in the sense that it's rooted in the apostolic tradition that Jesus left behind.